It's me, Valiant Dream. Frugal hack mistress of the weird wide web. I once uploaded a hack on how to make DIY white noise from a radio, but I moved into a new place, and at first when I moved in I was like, oh wow, this is the most quiet place I've ever lived. I never want to leave. And a few days later I started to realize, like, oh, no, there's some noises. I just didn't hear them at first because I was in like my honeymoon phase with my apartment. The noises are really not that big of a deal. They're not super loud. They're not out of control. But I have some sensory issues regarding sound, and when I hear sounds, they at best really distract me and at worst enrage me. So that's why I'm so dedicated to finding the best sound masking lo-fi technology, which can be done simply and cheaply. Because I'm simple and cheap. I kind of stopped using the radio so much because we just pick up too many stations right here, and it's hard to find a vacant frequency. Any spot that I could find on the dial that provided pretty good static would also, the stations on either end of that frequency were kind of leaking in, so it would be a nice staticky sound, but then some talking or some music, and I couldn't quite get just the wall of noise that I needed in order to feel at peace. My neighbors are all actually really cool, and we communicate about stuff like this, so I'm very lucky to be here, but at a certain point it's like I can't complain about the noise. It's like someone breathing, you know, it's not reasonable. And the thing is, I just have sensory issues. So we talk about it when it's reasonable, but when it's not, I keep it to myself. I was having a hard time becoming acclimated to the noises here and how to get rid of them from my eardrums. And I gave in and I bought a white noise machine. First I tried some new alternative methods, like this one. But how am I going to keep the key down all night? It didn't really matter what key it was. They all kind of sound the same to me anyway. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I tried placing different small things on it, but nothing was really heavy enough to just only press one key. Maybe that would be okay, but I had a different solution. I could tape it down. So the problem stopped being how to get the key to stay down, and it kind of became the worry keeping me up at night that having a key pressed and making noises for the whole time I sleep, so like 18 to 20 hours, it might break my keyboard. And then how am I going to play keyboard? I tried sleeping with this box fan on, and I actually do sleep with it on every night, but the first few nights I put it on, I would wake up and it would no longer be facing me. It would be like halfway across the room or blowing at the window. And at first it was obvious to me that I was experiencing a haunting. But then I realized that the fan is just kind of too lightweight to work on a hardwood floor without spinning itself around, so I had to start putting this crate behind it. With that, it still wasn't enough, so I got the noise machine And it has a couple different settings, but really I don't like any of them except the one that sounds like radio static. A perfectly flat, no interruption, static noise. But in doing so, I started to notice little noises in it. Like I could hear people talking, I could hear patterns. And the one that I got, it said that it was continuous, not a loop. However, they programmed it. I don't really understand how technology works, but somehow it's not a loop. It's just totally continuous forever and ever with no repeating sounds. But I was hearing repeating sounds, and sometimes it was kind of gruesome. Like I heard someone screaming over and over again coming out of my sound machine. And I looked it up and I read that this is pretty common actually. The human mind, or whatever, my mind too, is programmed by someone to pick up patterns and create patterns. So even if there's no pattern in the sound machine, I'm going to create a pattern. And sometimes it's people screaming for dear life. And then I figured if I can hear voices and screaming and all kinds of stuff in the sound machine anyway, then why don't I just use the radio and pick up the stations? And maybe I wasn't even picking up stations in the first place, but it actually was just my mind creating patterns. Do I regret buying the noise machine? Yeah, I don't really think it was worth it. Don't buy a noise machine, just go to my DIY white noise tutorial and use your radio next time. But of course this doesn't only happen when I'm sleeping, it's also when I'm trying to focus on something like reading or thinking or writing, painting my nails, petting Abby, telepathically communicating with Abby. It's all just very distracting, and I can't work on any of the projects that are important to me when there's noise cutting through into my world. Can you hear that? It sounds like metal clanking or something. One cool thing about the sound machine, I will give it this, is that you can put it on a timer. It will play for just 1 hour, just 2 hours, or just 3 or 4 hours. 4 options. And you can also put it on just infinite. It's on, it's doing its thing. I wish you could program it to work with a clock and like go on at a certain time, like when my neighbor leaves for work and her dog barks. Maybe you could find something more advanced like that, or you could just use a clock radio, which I don't have, but maybe if I find one, that will be my next thing that I try to deal with the noise. Until next time, sleep well. Whoops.